Hey Craig, I have some more questions for you after our last talk on balancing the chakra system.
Sure, what's on your mind?
Okay, so in that last Q&A we did, you talked about feeling into the chakras, each individual chakra, giving them attention, feeling what's happening inside in each of the 7 chakras. So I I've stopped and I've felt into them, and some I feel like a pulsing. Others there might be a little bit of movement. I don't know what it is, and in others it's just really there's feels like there's nothing there. It's just, I wouldn't say it's grounded or feels there's just nothing, which seems fine. But is it asleep? Is it awake? I don't know. And then I've also recently heard of an 8th chakra, and I don't know anything about that, and was, I know there's a lot of chakras in our body, but there's apparently some that are outside of our body. So if you can speak to some of that, I would really appreciate it.
Yeah, sure, I'd be happy to talk about that. And so, through the spiritual path, a big part of our path is us just opening up, becoming more aware of what this thing is that I am. There's this great question, that, a lot of non-dual teachers ask is who am I? The great Ramana Maharshi, this was his primary teaching. As you ask this question, who am I? And you sit with it. Now, most people use this question in like a path that's very similar to the neti-neti approach, which is you ask, like, who am I? You see that there's nothing there, and then you rest in that silence. And that's one way of experiencing this question of who am I? Another way, which is much more inclusive, is to ask this question in each of our 7 chakra centers, to open up to the subtle energetic body. And so like I was instructing with the last video is so, part of your daily meditation practice or your yoga practice or just a general awareness practice is you are feeling yourself, you're feeling your presence. I'm going to say in your feet, in your legs, in your arms, your hands, throughout your body, and just notice what's here. Like, what's here? What does it feel like in my hands? Can I feel that sense of aliveness and radiance that's there? In the space of the third eye, to be very specific, in a chakra center. Can I feel this silence and this spaciousness? Can I let go into that? Can I experience myself as that silence? Or when I look inside, do I just see, a mind that's full of thoughts or a heart that's just full of emotions? That's, in a sense, feeling into your humanness and how the chakra is related to on a human level. So in the human level in the mind, you feel thinking. The human level in the heart, you feel emotions. And this is where most people operate from. But we can ask this question, like, who am I truly in my heart? And as you open into your heart, you begin to feel this radiance, this presence of innocence. You also will feel, like a subtle spaciousness and love. And so the more awake you are, the more time you spend in meditation, the more sense of mindfulness, awareness. I mean, like true awareness, not just witnessing thoughts and emotions, but true awareness where you are aware of your energetic aliveness. You begin to feel very clearly the 7 chakra centers. We can talk about that, like the 8th, 9th, 10th, and 12th. We can talk about that later, but let me keep it simple here. When you feel into yourself, pick a place like your heart, your belly, and meditate in that place. If we practice Zen, we would sit and we'd meditate on the hara for a day, a week, a month, a year, 10 years. And as we were meditating on the hara, we feel this profound sense of power, this sense of strength, a feeling of like a mountain of emptiness. But if we're just a normal everyday person living in our normal everyday consciousness, all we do is we just focus on our thoughts and our feelings, call that our identity, and live in what the Buddha called the dream world. A part of stepping out of the dream world is stepping into the fullness of what you are and feeling and experiencing life from your heart. Feeling and experiencing life from the profound depth of your belly. And so the way you begin to awaken these places is through simply having awareness there and keeping it there consistently. Now, most of us know the feeling of like, if you have to give a speech, you get like butterflies in the stomach. Someone yells at you, there's anger in the belly. You go through a breakup and you feel this heaviness in the heart. If you're doing your taxes, you probably feel just like a lot of thoughts in your head of just like trying to figure out the taxes or whatever it is. And that's just what I call just normal human, like a normal human experience of the chakra centers. But all these centers also have this divine realm. And so if you meditate upon them from this space of quietude, what you'll find is they'll open, they'll become alive. But for most people, like their spiritual centers, they just remain dormant for most of their life. And then, occasionally you go see a sunset and like your heart opens. You fall in love, your heart opens. You get a motorcycle for the first time and you're going for a ride in the country. You feel the wind blowing in your hair. And you may have a sense of like heart opening and like your belly, just like feeling the power of the motorcycle. If you climb a mountain, sometimes you'll feel that vastness of the third eye just really open up. And so if we want to open these, if we want to get to know these, we have to spend time with our chakra centers. And we're sitting with them. We're saying, what's here? What's here beyond emotion, beyond pain, beyond like the congestion of the normal human experience, my old karma and baggage that I've kind of stored in the chakra centers. What's here beyond that? Like for most people, when they go into their heart, they just feel like the pain, the sadness of the past. And they just like carry this weight on their heart. But if you feel into that pain, if you meet it with love, if it starts to empty out of you, and then you keep asking yourself, like, what is my heart? Like, what's here? You'll notice there's this gentle, loving radiance that's there. And the more you open to it, the more that chakra just stays open. It stays open. My teacher, David, his teacher, her name was Hilda Charlton. She was this amazing teacher. She was like one of the first Westerners like to go to India, even like before the 60s. And she was going there like in the 40s or 50s or whatever. And when she came back from India and she started teaching, this healer came up to her and said, wow, all 7 chakras are completely open in Hilda. Like she's just like this bright light in every single chakra center. And people would feel that in her presence. Sometimes people would come into her presence and faint because there was just this brilliance and love just pouring from her. It's like just such a power of God consciousness here on earth. Like she was just this amazing being. She used to give these talks in New York City, and 600 people would come, and they would just bask in the light. They just bask in her light that was just shining from each of her centers. And so much is possible for us if we dedicate our life to opening these centers. if we dedicate our life to getting to know what we truly are, and then inviting this grace to pour forth into our lives. And so, yes, there's these 7 centers, from the crown chakra down to the base of the spine, the pelvic floor. But beyond that, there's these other centers, the 8th, 9th, 10th, and these chakra centers connect us to God, like in a heavenly way. And so when you start to come up into these centers, like with this, the 8th one here, what I call the 8th one, when you connect to it, it feels just like utter brilliance. Utter brilliance. It's like spacious, yet utterly brilliant. And then as you keep going up, they just get more and more brilliant, more and more translucent, more and more heavenly. Where you're connecting, in a sense, to your heavenly body, like your form that stays with you, throughout your journey, even into heaven. The form that we have in between lifetimes, and not to get too new agey sounding or strange or this or that. We can keep it practical, because for most people, the 7 chakra centers are enough to work with. But above the head, we also have like all these, like they're almost like lines, that where we have these karmic lines that are kind of feeding into us, our soul contracts. We have our connection with like our, like our Enneagram, number. I'm a 9. And so I can feel that contract. It's kind of like been downloaded into me. I can feel, the previous lifetimes and the karma that's come with those. Good karma, the so-called bad karma, which is just really like our evolutionary nature. And so there's, all these archetypes and all kinds of, things that can make this whole talk, quite complicated. But what's important here is just for us, the more awake, the more aware you are, you begin to see that there is so much here. So much to learn from, to open to grow into, so much that can evolve. There's so much that's possible for us. We can live in quite a heavenly way. When Christ said, heaven is here all about the earth, yet no man seeth, because his 7 chakra centers were open. He was connected to the hugeness of his divinity. He was living, literally, as heaven on earth, yet in a human form. Whereas most people, they're in a human form and they connect to their human form either in an animal way or a human way. People who are really like low on that evolutionary scale, they're just real, they kind of act like animals in the world. And then people who are a little bit upgraded, they act like human beings. They try to use logic, but they're still just lost in a world of thought and emotion. But beyond that, of course, there's these 7 other realms. And then, boy, there's like countless heaven worlds if we really get into it that we can access. And you'll notice different spiritual teachers kind of access different realms. Like someone like Eckhart Tolle, he's, really in this third eye realm. It's vast, it's open, it's free. Which is different than, it's a different kind of individual who's all heart, like someone like Amachi. She has, the Indian saint, the hugging saint. She has all 7 chakra centers, but she lives from her heart. Her heart chakra just pours out to all those around her. But because she's a master, she can access all 7 and live through them. But her primary resting place is the heart. And so within each individual, you ask, like, you'll see some individuals are more, kind of like up here, third eye centered. Some people are more heart-centered. Some people are more Zen-like, like Adyashanti, deep in his belly. It has this profound strength and silence. So a great question is where do we live from? Where do we want to get to know? Like, what would I like to get to know more of about myself? What am I willing to explore? Am I willing to let go of just my everyday human life and step into this greater level of development and experience? Am I willing to fall in love with myself and explore myself eternally and discover, this greatness, this incredible experience of being divine here, here in the world? And so, yeah, that was a beautiful question. You have any other thoughts or questions that came forward?
Yes, actually, that was really, really quite something, Craig. That actually hit on the question. Like, I wasn't sure was I to put my attention on every chakra every time I sat. So I would cycle through. So do I feel anything here? Do I feel anything, first, second, third? But you mentioned, if you're a Zen monk, Zen Buddhist, you might sit and meditate and feel into the hara for, a day or 10 days, 10 years. So can you talk more about how to determine where to put your attention?
Yeah, well, that's a great question, and one of the things that comes forward in this is you'll notice, like, when you really sit down, if you just kind of sit down and kind of scan your body, you may notice that one chakra is speaking to you more so than the rest. And in a very human way, it's just like when we live our life, we tend to pick up like a lot of stuff just throughout, just like living. Sometimes we find ourselves watching the news and we walk away angry or sad or hurt. And so, if I sit down and I'm noticing there's, some level of agitation or sadness in my heart, I'm going to bring my attention to my heart because I'm just noticing, oh, there's something here. And I'll help that pain to release itself just through meeting it with love and just breathing in and out. And then, I'll just look at it again and just see, should I rest here? Should I rest here? And sometimes it's just like, yeah, I'm going to rest in my heart for the extent of the meditation. Sometimes I clear the energy in my heart, but then I realize, oh, I really want to, intuitively just come deep in the belly and let go into that depth of silence and that mountain of emptiness. And so it's really an intuitive thing. But when we're beginning the path, I encourage individuals to go one by one through the chakra centers, but not always like 1, 2, 3 through them. Like how I spent probably 4 years meditating on the space of my third eye. I spent years and years just meditating in the heart, years and years meditating in the belly. And so those tend to be the 3 big chakra centers. But just as like a general practice in the way I sit, I sit down, I open my heart, open the crown chakra. And the reason I open the crown always is to make sure that this doorway is open to God pouring down into me. And if you don't like the word God, think of the intelligence of the universe, the intelligence that created us, that created everything. And so as a general practice, I always want to have this crown open and my heart open so that I can receive, from the intelligence of the universe. I may have some great idea like I want to be a Zen monk, but I may not be wired to be a Zen monk. I may be wired, to be a heart person. And so if I'm putting all my attention on being, this Zen monk, and it's not really my true nature, and God's trying to talk to me, up here, here, and here, I want to be open and listen to that. One of my good friends, she's in the world of Zen, but she says, a lot of times I just close my eyes and I just open to my experience, and let life talk to me. Let this moment talk to me. I don't just sit there and contemplate my navel for, the past 10 years. But that being said, I'm a big fan of just like going through each of them and sitting there Explore each one for a month and just notice what's there. And notice, is there one where I just naturally rest? And people tend to rest, normally in the head, heart, or gut. And that's part of your soul nature. It's like for a lifetime, there's a good chance you're going to rest in one of those. It's nice to have all three open, and to awaken each one of them, and to have a profound level of freedom and experience there. But what you find is, you're just your makeup, your soul makeup, you'll tend to rest in one of those places. But play with this, open, but not in a casual way. It's like when you commit your life to this practice, you do discover this incredible presence that you are. Much more than just a human thinking and emotional animal. Like what we are is quite incredible. And so sit with it and discover for yourself, what's here. What's here. Yeah, so thank you. That was a great question.
Well, I have one more question, though.
Yeah, please.
So when you sit down and you like to, get your belly open and your heart open, and you start off and you open the crown chakra, how do you do that?
Yeah, that's a great question. I just do it habitually. But how do you do it? Because I've been taught this. I had a teacher who would just like bang this into my head, and he used to scan my body, and just tell me like where I'm open and where I'm not open. And so, now I do it with people. I'll just notice like, oh, there's, like clenching in the throat, or there's, places where they're shut off. Most people, it's funny, most spiritual people are shut off from God. That's real hilarious to me. But because so many people have trauma with their idea of God or their experience of organized religion. And so how do you open the chakras? It's all about, the simple answer is it's all about bringing awareness there and just feeling there and breathing there. And so with the crown chakra, you bring your awareness to the, the crown of the head, the top of the head, and you just breathe and feel and have awareness fully there. And just notice, like right now when I do it, I feel just like, oh, this radiance on the top of my head. And it feels alive. If this is your first time doing it, you may feel like a deadness or a numbness there, like, I don't feel anything. And so then can you have the discipline just to feel and breathe and keep your attention there? Same thing with the heart. Can you bring awareness into your heart? Deep in the heart, not just on the surface of the heart, that's where our emotional world lives, but deep in the heart. And you feel and you breathe. So you go to the heart center, then in like 2 or 3 inches toward the spine, and feel and breathe there. Same thing with the belly. Not on the surface, but you go to the belly, a couple inches below the belly button, and go in 2 or 3 inches, feel and breathe. And experience there. And it's a good practice just to sit there for 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 15 minutes, and just breathing, and just a gentle discipline, not real strict, tight, and tense, but just a gentle discipline. Just feeling, breathing. And you'll notice it'll start to, things will start to light up. You'll feel like this subtle radiance coming alive. It's like plugging it in. It's like plugging in one of those like compact fluorescent lights, like those, those new light bulbs that are good for the environment. As long as you turn on the light, it just kind of turns on a litlittle bit and then like takes a little bit of time to warm up, like about 10 years ago when you had one, it would take like 5 minutes just to get that thing to fully light up. And by that time you moved on to the next room. But, give it a little bit of time, because it's like literally like, it's like they're awakening oftentimes from a slumber. And then you can have a different kind of experience. Like I was saying before, is if you have like a lot of emotional pain, Sometimes you have to just breathe and do some healing work and loving work and letting go work, maybe some work of forgiveness, so you can actually feel the true nature of your heart. And so sometimes there's a little bit of a price to pay. Like if you're coming into the space of the third eye, you have to surrender your attachment to your thoughts. You can't just like keep, going on that thought train. You have to like let go, step back, and then, maybe become attached to thoughts again. It's like, I want to let go, I want to step back, and I'm going to notice the space in which my thoughts are arising. So if there's a deadness there, you just breathe it into it. If there's a lot of confusion there, which is another common thing, you have to work with that confusion, meet it with love and clarity, help it to empty out, and then you begin to experience the truth of each center. And the truth, it's not like a static thing. It's like through my work with my teacher, like, when I met him on the first day, we might have done, one level of work in the third eye. But after 20 years, when we step into it, it's like, boom. There's this hugeness and experience of immensity and infinity there. And so they grow and they open. And it's like they can open in an infinite way. So it's not like some little experience that's just has a beginning and an end. Like what you are, when you really feel into it, you can open into that in an infinite and immense way. Yeah, so anything else around that, or?
Oh, there will be. There will be for sure, but for today, that gave me a lot to work with.
Yeah, these are great questions, and I take all this for granted because I just had so much time working with my teacher. And sometimes I forget that people don't always know what I'm talking about when I'm speaking about opening to these chakra centers. And so it's just one of those things like, I have friends who dedicate their life to like rock climbing or mountain biking or, being, doctor or this person or this kind of person or that kind of person. Just like anything in life, when you dedicate your life to it and you discover there's whole worlds of mastery, of divinity that are available to us all. And if you want these great things, it's like, I wanted them, so I wanted to experience the hugeness of what the great saints wrote about. And so we dedicate our life to this exploration. And it's, it's a beautiful thing. It's like a gift it just keeps expanding in huger and more divine ways. And so, yes, a beautiful question. So thank you.